You don't feel broken because you are weak. You feel broken because something inside you has been carrying too much for too long without being misunderstood, processed, or released. And most people never get told that the feeling of being broken is often just a signal that your current way of thinking, living, or coping isn't working anymore. And not that you as a person are damaged beyond repair. And that distinction matters more than anything, because if you believe you are broken, you'll try to fix yourself like an object. But if you understand you're overwhelmed, you're misaligned or exhausted, you can start rebuilding in a way that actually works. And here's the truth most people avoid: your brain is not designed to make you happy. It's designed to keep you safe, which means it will hold on to fear, failure, and embarrassment and pain far longer than it holds on to wins, progress, or positive moments. So over time, if you don't actively challenge what that pattern, your internal world becomes a highlight reel of everything that went wrong, and you start mistaking that for reality, when in fact it's just a survival bias that running unchecked. And that's why you can have people who look successful, capable, and even admire on the outside and still feel completely broken on the inside, because their internal narrative has caught up to their external life. And if that's you, the first thing you need to understand is that feeling broken is not a permanent state, it's a temporary interpretation. And interpretations, can be changed, but only if you're willing to look at what's actually going on instead of just labeling yourself and stopping there. Because I'm broken is a dead end statement. It explains nothing and it solves nothing. But asking what specifically feels off opens the door to clarity. And clarity is where everything starts, because maybe it's not that you're broken. Maybe you're burned out from constantly pushing without recovery. Maybe you've been chasing goals that don't actually matter to you. Maybe you've been surrounding yourself with people who drain you, or your environments that don't support you. Maybe you've been comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reels until your own life feels small. And if you don't identify the actual cause, you'll keep treating the symptoms, and that's why so many people stay stuck. They try to motivate themselves out of a problem that actually requires honesty, structure, and change, not just the hype. And here's another uncomfortable truth, too. Sometimes the reason you feel broken is because you've outgrown your current identity. And growth feels like loss before it feels like progress, because the habits, the beliefs, and the routines that used to define you no longer fit. But you haven't fully built the new version of yourself yet. So you're in this in between phase where nothing feels stable, and that instability gets labeled as something is wrong with me. When really it's just transition, and transition is messy by default. But if you quit in that phase, you don't go back to who you were. You just stay stuck in the confusion, and that's where a lot of people are right now. Not broken, just unfinished. And if you can shift your perspective about I'm broken to I'm in the middle of becoming something better, everything starts to move differently. Because now you're not trying to fix yourself, you're trying to build yourself. And building it takes time, repetition, and patience, not perfection. And this is where most people sabotage themselves. They expect a completely emotional reset overnight. They want to wake up and feel like a different person without putting in the consistency, or often boring work that actually creates change. And when that doesn't happen, they confirm their worst belief. And that's something is fundamentally wrong with them. But the reality is simple, though. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Small actions repeated daily will outwork big bursts of motivation that disappear after a few days. So if you feel broken, don't try to overhaul your entire life tomorrow. Start by stabilizing the basics. So fix your sleep, move your body, limit the constant input that feeds your mind negativity, and most importantly, start controlling your internal dialogue, because the way you talk to yourself is either reinforcing the feeling of being broken or slowly dismantling it. And if your default thoughts sound like criticism, doubt, and defeat, then even neutral situations will feel like proof that you're failing. But if you start challenging those thoughts, not ignoring them, but questioning them, you create space between you and that narrative. In that space, you gain control. And control is what people who feel broken are usually missing. They feel like life is happening to them instead of something they can influence. So take control in the smallest way possible. Keep promises to yourself, even small ones, because every time you follow through, you rebuild trust with yourself. And self trust is the foundation of confidence, not achievements, not validation, but the simplest beliefs that you can rely on yourself to do what you said you would do. And once you start to build that, the feeling of being broken starts to crack because now you're proving to yourself that you're capable, and capability is the opposite of helplessness. And here's something else you need to hear too. You need to feel ready to start improving. You need to start improving to feel ready because waiting until you feel motivated, confident, or fixed is a trap that keeps you stuck indefinitely. Actions create clarity, not the other way around. And even if your actions are imperfect, they move you forward. And forward movement, no matter how small, is what breaks the stagnation. And stagnation is what makes people feel broken in the first place because nothing is changing. So their mindset assumes nothing can change. And that assumption becomes their reality, but it's a false one because change is always possible. It just rarely happens all at once. It happens in layers, and most of these layers are invisible in the beginning, which is why people quit too early. They don't see progress, so they assume there isn't any. But progress, it isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just reacting slightly better than you did before, thinking a little clearer than you did last week, or choosing discipline one more time than you used to. And those small shifts, they compound, but only if you keep going. And that's the part no one can do for you. You have to decide that even if you feel broken, you're not going to act like you are, because your actions matter more than your feelings in the long run. And this doesn't mean ignoring your emotions, though. It means not letting them dictate your direction, because emotions are temporary, but the consequences of your actions are lasting. And if you let a temporary feeling convince you to stop, quit, or isolate yourself, you extend that feeling far longer than it was meant to last. But if you act in spite of it, you shorten its lifespan. And over time, you build resilience not by avoiding hard moments, but by moving through them without letting them define you. And that's the key difference between people who stay stuck and people who grow. They both feel the same emotions, they just respond differently. And if you're waiting for a moment where everything feels easy again, you might be waiting forever. But if you're willing to move forward, even when it's uncomfortable, confusing, or slow, you'll eventually reach a point where the feeling of being broken doesn't even make sense to you anymore because you'll have too much evidence of your own growth to believe it. And that's the goal, not to eliminate struggle or anything, but to become someone who can handle it without collapsing into it. And that version of you is built through repetition, through choosing to keep going when it would be easier to stop, through showing up on days where you don't feel like yourself, and proving that you don't need to feel perfect to make progress. And if you take anything away from this, let it be this: you are not broken. You are in a phase that requires adjustment, effort, and patience. Then the sooner you stop labeling yourself and start understanding yourself, the faster things begin to change. Because the moment you realize that your current state is not your final state, you take back power. And once you have that power, even in small amounts, you can start rebuilding, and one decision at a time, one habit at a time, one day at a time, until eventually the version of you that once felt broken becomes the proof that you never were. You were just in the process of becoming something stronger than you ever expected. Thanks for watching today's video. If you found value in today's video, please like and subscribe. The subscription is ultimately the most important thing. Without you, I can't grow this channel, and I'd love to be here for a very long time. Also, be something positive down in the comment section. I always respond to everything. If it's negative, don't bother. Don't waste my time or yours. Also, check out this video to the right. I would also love to see you down in the comments. Like I just said, I try to respond to every comment, and I'd love to hear from you. Thanks. Talk to you guys later, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.